to the night before news video in preparation for maths paper 3. Just to make sure we're in the right place, this is the foundation video for the exam taking place on the 11th of June. So before we get stuck in, just want to remind you how important your revision is for this exam in particular. This is the exam typically that students do best on. It's the one where we have the best idea of what's going to come up in the exam, and this list is still going to seem quite long, but it is significantly shorter than it has been, and the very large majority of things on this list are going to be in your exam. So it's really, really important that you take the opportunity that you have with the remaining time you've got this evening and tomorrow morning to work through as many of these things as possible. They'll be on the morning revision. They're also all over the predicted papers that we've given you, which are all on Arbor, so please make sure you access those, but I'll talk more about that later. For now, you might want to pause this and go and get a pen and paper if you haven't already, just to jot down not all of the things on this list, but anything that you know that you need to do some work on. So, I'm going to do this by strand this time. There's not going to be a huge amount of number left because you've had most of it, but within the number strand, use of a calculator is a very, very common 2-mark question that we've not had yet. If you've not got a great calculator, please do come and borrow one in the morning. Otherwise, you're going to need to make sure you can use your calculator really effectively with brackets in the right places to make sure that you can do those calculations. So do practice that, make sure you're okay with it. It is in predicted papers, so you will see it on there. Combinations, typically this is that question of listing the possible combinations of like starter, main and dessert in a restaurant, but there are other contexts it can come up in. The question that I've done on the morning revision is a different context, just to make sure you've seen something else. Standard form did come up in paper 1, you had to add standard form, but there's still room for it to come up again. It's not a guaranteed topic, but it's likely. You may have to do standard form conversions. Your calculator may do that for you. If you type the number from the exam into your calculator, it might give you the answer. If it doesn't give you the answer, then when you've worked it out, if you put your answer in your calculator, it will tell you if you've done the question right. So hopefully that's quite straightforward. You could get other standard form calculations, but again, you can just type them into your calculator. And then error intervals is a really, really common number topic as well that we've not seen yet. That could be rounding, which is the question that students tend to find quite easy. It could be truncation. If you don't know what I mean, that's worth revising. So make sure you know how to do an error interval for truncation. And then in geometry, you had a lot of geometry in paper 2, so there is going to be less now, but some of these things will definitely come up. Plans and elevations, it's been a really common topic over the last couple of years. We've not seen it yet in paper 1 or paper 2. Transformations, guaranteed to be in the exam tomorrow. That's rotation, translation, enlargement and reflection. Could be doing those transformations, could be describing them. My prediction is 2 questions, one where you do it, one where you describe it, but I couldn't possibly predict which transformations it will be. Similar shapes, I could have put this in the proportion section, but it fits in geometry as well. Not a guaranteed topic, a few different ways it could come up, but probably worth a look if you're not sure how that works. Similarly, I haven't put it on this list actually, but congruence. Congruent shapes are shapes that are identical, same shape, same size. You can get 1-mark questions about that, so it's worth making sure you know what congruency is. And then bearings, again, not massively common, but could come up in some sort of scale diagram question. You've only had a 1-mark loci question in paper 2, so there's definitely more room for them to get you getting out a ruler and a protractor and measuring. You did have the pie chart, of course, in paper 2 as well, which slightly reduces the likelihood of this coming up, but definitely still could. And then big topic, Pythagoras. Not guaranteed like we used to think it was, but very, very good chance that Pythagoras is coming up in the exam tomorrow. And then algebra, there's still quite a lot of algebra that hasn't come up. You still didn't have loads in paper 2, having had very, very little in paper 1. Laws of indices, make sure you know what happens when you multiply, divide, and have powers of powers. Those rules are really, really important. Those should be easy marks if you've made sure you know what you're doing. Expanding, single brackets and double brackets, neither has come up yet, so make sure you're ready for both. Similarly, factorising with linear expressions with single brackets and quadratics with double brackets. Equally, solving quadratics could come up. Forming and solving equations, you've had a little bit of this, but not a lot. So it would be a good way of them tying algebra in with another topic if they wanted to give you another angles question, for example, or another perimeter question. So you might want to be prepared for that. Equally, it could just be a worded question for forming and solving. Rearranging formulae, again, like it will come up. I'm fairly confident of that. I just don't know if it will be an easy question or a more difficult question. Simultaneous equations is not a guarantee, but it is very common. What you sometimes get instead of simultaneous equations is just like a wordy proportion topic where you can just do simple stuff with your calculator to get through it. But we could get simultaneous equations in the format that we're used to seeing it. We could also get a worded simultaneous equations question. So just a heads up on that. And then coordinates, from very, very basic stuff up to things like midpoints and finding missing coordinates in certain shapes. And then sequences, you've had a bit of sequences now. I can't remember exactly what it was in paper 1, but you had a fairly basic question there. You had the Fibonacci sequence in paper 2. What you haven't had still, and may not get, but I would definitely make sure you're ready for it, is nth term. Finding the nth term, which is the really crucial skill, but also then being able to use it to find missing values, to find values a certain way through a sequence, to check if certain numbers are in a sequence, all of those skills. And I think because there's so much there, there's a fairly good chance of it coming up still. And then on to probability and statistics, which is a small strand, and you've had a few probability and statistics questions now, but I still think you could get more from these things. Definitely won't be all of them, but it will be some. When I say probability basics, I partly mean just extracting a probability from a question. That could be from a statistical diagram. I'll list some of those in this section in a second. But also being able to use words to describe probability, unlikely, evens, likely, certain, impossible, and being able to mark probabilities on a probability scale. So make sure you're happy with all of those. They're in the morning revision as well. Frequency tables, you've had averages now. You've had, trying to remember, mode and range from raw data in paper 2, and you actually had reverse mean. But frequency tables is very, very common. It's made less common now by the amount of averages you've had, but do be prepared to find the mean, and I would suggest the median from a frequency table or a grouped frequency table. That would be my prediction. Pictograms, quite an easy stats topic. Just make sure you know how they work. Make sure you're ready to do a key if you need to. Scatter graphs, where you need to then put lines in to estimate a bit of data that isn't currently on the graph. Frequency polygons, another quite basic statistical diagram. Remember, it's midpoints. Remember, it's straight lines connecting each of those points. No line connecting the start and end. Venn diagrams, I seem to recall you having something to do with set notation in paper 1, but you could still get Venn diagrams, and you could get Venn diagrams with frequencies in each section rather than lists of numbers, just one number in each place that tells you how many people there are, which is a bit harder. I think you're less likely to get that than some of the other things on here, but it could still come up. What's slightly more likely is frequency trees, and then you've got probability trees as well. Remember, those two things work quite differently, but you might want to make sure you're prepared for those. And then proportion is a massive strand, and there are still quite a few things we haven't had yet from this list. Currency conversion, in no way guaranteed, but still really important. Best buys, you've basically, they're like the main proportion topics. The one that you've had come up was a very easy recipes question in paper 1, so I'd expect to see either of those, possibly both. And then conversion graphs, you won't get scatter graphs and conversion graphs. I think you'll likely get one or the other. Reverse percentages, this is huge. I said previously you had like no percentages in paper 1. You did have quite a few in paper 2, but there's still lots of scope for this to come up in paper 3. Basic percentages questions as well as reverse ones where you're trying to find the original amount or the amount that something has increased or decreased by. You might be asked to find the percentage of profit, for example. And then interest, also massive. I would be amazed if it doesn't come up in some way, shape or form. That could be simple or compound or both. And you've also got depreciation, just before I forget that, which is, remember, always compound using a decreasing decimal. And then inverse proportion, you've got an example of an inverse proportion in the predicted paper that I wrote. It's also in the morning revision, so just make sure you've had a go at those. If it comes up, it's fairly straightforward. You just need to have read the question carefully. And then compound measures, you have now had speed, distance, time, and density, mass, volume. You could get a pressure question, but equally speed or density could repeat, and you could get a harder, like combined journeys or combined densities question, where you need to draw a table to help you store the information, unit conversions involved and things like that. So please do be ready for that. That's it's quite a big topic as well. So that's your list. Like I said, it's quite a lot, but most of it's going to come up. So in terms of now how to get the most out of your time between now and the exams, if you want to look at individual topics, and I will still say that the predicted papers are the best thing you can be working on, but if you know there's something really specific that you need to do some work on, first place to remind you where you can go is Sparks. You can go on the independent learning section on there. You know how to use this by now. You can type in the name of the topic, make sure it says GCSE. But the other thing I'd just remind you of is to just play around with the difficulty level, because it will hide certain styles of questions if you don't do that. And you want to make sure you kind of cover all aspects of some of these things, including the basics. And then you've got ExamQ as well. Remember, when you go on examq.co.uk, you just want to make sure this is set to Foundation, and this needs to be set to paper 2 and paper 3, not just paper 3. They're both calculated papers, so you want to make sure you look at both. And then you can type the name of the topic that you're looking for in here. So keep doing that. And then you've got Maths Genie, which we know is really good for this sort of thing. Remember, once you go on mathsgenie.co.uk, you can press this button or this button. They take you to the same place, and you can find all of the topics from the GCSE there if you want to look at just questions for those topics. Still, the exam practice from predicted or past papers is better, because you do get the kind of variance of style of question over time from those that you won't get even from somewhere as good as Maths Genie. And then if you want to do your practice papers, your predicted papers, again, Maths Genie is a good place to go. If you go on there and you go on Edexcel exams, then you can access past papers, as well as the papers that we've put on Arbor for you. You've also then got mathslinks.co.uk, which I've mentioned previously, where you can access a load of predicted papers. But again, everything that's good we've put on Arbor for you, so you don't need to go on there. You have got the papers. It's just that if you've exhausted all of that resource, you can use either of these websites to find even more, including past papers and other practice papers. So do feel free to have a look at those. But first, check Arbor, do all of the resources that we've put on there. And then just some final reminders about tomorrow. So having exhausted all of the resources that we've given you today, really, really important that you do that. Then make sure you get in early tomorrow. I've gone through all of this before. Come in early tomorrow. Bring in with you any questions that you've been stuck on. Do feel free to email sooner, by the way. I'm very, very happy to get back to people tonight and help if you've got any questions that you're not sure about. But come in tomorrow with questions. Come in tomorrow with resources that you've got stuck on. We'll help you through them. And then when we go into the conservatory, please make the most of that time. You will have this breakfast mat again, not with those questions, with new questions. There will be 40 questions. It will cover the very, very, very large majority of stuff that's going to come up in the exam, possibly even all of it. So please do make sure you get really stuck into that. Do as much of it as you can. Please don't just sit there having a chat. It's not the time for it. There'll be plenty of time for that afterwards. And if you've done all of the predicted papers and made the most of that time, there's no two ways about it. You will do extremely well, better than you've done on either of the other papers, because we have such a good idea at this stage of what's actually likely to come up in this exam tomorrow. And then final advice, and again, you've had this before, but just to remind you, please make sure you attempt every single question, no matter how complicated it seems. Don't leave it blank. Do give it a try. That's really important. Read the last line of each question before you move on. Make sure you read the questions really carefully. Even the little bits of information early in questions that might not seem important because there's a diagram and you understand how that works, read every single word that's printed on your exam paper. It might just be that it helps you realise something that you hadn't noticed otherwise. Keep thinking about sensible answers, particularly with some of the topics that we know are likely to come up, and particularly having seen the style of paper 2. I know there will be things that caught people out in that exam, mistakes that were actually avoidable, but you've got this opportunity tomorrow to make sure we overcome those sorts of errors. And then check your answers where possible. You can work backwards through problems to get back to the question. You can reattempt things. You can put them back into your calculator. Whatever it might be substituting, whatever. Just make sure you do it. Okay, check your answers. There will be topics, looking at the list that I've shared with you, there will be topics where you can check your answers really effectively. And please use all of the time that you have in your exam doing these things. Don't stop. Okay, I'd leave it all out there, no regrets. Make sure you've absolutely maximised your mark, eradicated any mistakes. Simple things, like I say, like just typing a calculation back into your calculator, making sure you get the same answer. Can you get the same answer with a different method? Can you work backwards through the question? Whatever it might be, just absolutely make sure. So that's all from me. The last thing to say is good luck, but actually luck's got nothing to do with it at this stage. Maybe it does a little bit for paper 1 and paper 2 because you can't revise everything and then you need a little bit of luck with what comes up, but not paper 3. Okay, luck will not play a part in this. You will get out of it what you put into it. The more work you do tonight, the more work you do in the morning, the better your mark would be. So please do loads. Okay, this isn't the time to be worrying about burning yourself out, being overtired, or looking after yourself. There'll be loads of time for that after. Right now, you need to go and work your socks off. Okay, no regrets. Like I said, smash it on this paper, and no matter how poorly or how well you think paper 1 and 2 have done, please trust that your mark will be decided by this exam. Sorry, I will have to ring back the person I've just been really rude to by hanging up on them. But good luck with your revision. And again, please do come in with work in the morning, and I will see you then. I look forward to seeing you after your exam.